Hey, welcome back to the show. You're on with Behind the Internet. We got some really exciting stuff to talk to you about today. But first of all, let's start with our introductions. I'm Aaron. I'm one of our outside sales rep for Wisper, and
I am Jesse, Field Services, Washington, Missouri. And I tell you what, Aaron, this episode could have hit at a better time for us. We have just launched the Wisper Home app recently, and we have Gabe Petersen from Calix, the expert, to come on and show us what's going on and give us some tips and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and have Gabe, come on now and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Hey, thanks, gentlemen. Hopefully you didn't oversell with the expert bit there, but I appreciate the introduction. So really nice to be talking with you today. As you said, my name is Gabe Petersen. I work at Calix, and we partner with Wisper to help you guys deliver the Wisper Home app. And one of my roles at Calix is to help our customers actually roll this out. And I talk to a lot of people about the app and about the specific features of the app that from a functionality perspective, you guys are going to be able to use within your homes to help control the internet, control your wireless experience, and make sure that the service that you're getting from Wisper is awesome. So really excited to be talking to you today.
Oh, and we are beyond excited about this whole entire rollout. Ever since we first started talking about it, actually with you, Gabe, in Vegas, I've been extremely excited about this. So if you haven't heard, we're launching a new service called Wisper Home. We're rolling it out. Well, actually, it's kind of already started this month in October, and it's part of your Wisper Care Plan for just $15 a month. We'll put in some cool details in the comments section more about the Wisper Care Plan. But the Wisper Home allows you to control any of your smart devices in your home. So if you're a smart home user like myself, this is a great app. And it also protects your devices using a secure network. You can also control some of the parental controls, block viruses, create guest accounts. Gabe, I could probably go on, but go for it.
Yeah, there's a lot there. No, I think you're touching on the network protection services and some of the other things. And I think that's so key right now. There's so many ways that hackers can get into our homes and those smart home devices. I'm a big smart home guy too. I've got a bunch of Amazon devices and a bunch of, lights and all of these things that are connected in our homes. And, oftentimes they really become avenues for hackers to get into our home, which is, not ideal. So providing that umbrella of protection for all of those devices that are connected within the home is, I think, a huge value add of what you guys are delivering with the Wisper Home app for sure. And the service specifically.
Yes.
No, I was going to also say too, this is the perfect time because I haven't gone through the official app training or anything like that yet. So like I usually do, I'm going to be writing down notes. I'll be following along on my phone. I downloaded the app last week, but I haven't touched it or done anything with that. So
perfect.
Gabe, really appreciate you coming on just to, do some screen sharing and just walk us through step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys want to jump into it as far as the screen share goes?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So let me first share. You guys see that all right?
Coming up, yes.
Perfect. All right, so I want to just talk first about the actual onboarding process of how to actually go and get the app. So first thing you want to do is you want to go to the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, and download the Wisper Home app. You just search for Wisper Home. You'll be able to pull that up directly within the App Store and download it to your phone. We would definitely recommend that folks are doing this early on in the process. If they're getting new service from Wisper, make sure that they're downloading this and installing it before the technician shows up to install, so you've got everything kind of up and ready to roll. From there, you'll just need to kind of create basically just log in and create an account. So you'll have to provide some information, email, create a password, follow this information just to fill out some of this additional information that you see on the screen here. If you do already have a GigaSpire Blast system from the folks at Wisper, you can actually just quickly click through to scan the QR code or enter some of the MAC address and serial address information. I'd probably recommend scanning the QR code. That would actually be on the physical wireless access point that's within your home. So you can just quickly scan that QR code and it'll get all the information that you need. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then from there, you can actually set up your wireless as well. If one of the techs from Wisper is out there. They'll definitely help you walk through this process. But if you already have one of those GigaSpire Blast systems in your home, there's certainly still an opportunity to download that app and connect the app to the GigaSpire Blast system that you have within your home. One thing I always like to call out here is if you do have the wireless already up and running, make sure you click on that click here to skip step. If you already have your Wi-Fi SSID up and running, there's no need to create a new one. You can just click through and do that quickly. So it's a very easy process. Just download that app, Wisper Home, go to the App Store on either Apple Play or Google Play, I should say, or the Apple App Store. Create an account and scan the QR code, and you're pretty much off and running.
No, that's good. And that was a good tip about having the customer have this done before the field tech gets out there to do the installation. Now, I'm sure it can be done while the field tech's there. Maybe some customers just would like some extra help, but that would make sense of having the customer have this before we get out there to speed up the process, and it would make a lot more sense. So I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just going to expedite the process, right? So, when the tech's out there, want to make sure that it goes as quickly as possible. If you have that app already, then you're going to be, it's going to be that much faster for the technician to get you up and running.
Yeah.
Very good.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to pop over to the actual app and start walking through some of that stuff, if that sounds good with you guys.
Yes, I was hoping you could. I was actually just mentioning that. So yeah, go right ahead.
All right, so let me move my face out of the way there so you can see less of me. But so I've got the actual, I've got the Wisper Home app on my, pulled up on my screen here. Hopefully you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome, perfect. And I have a GigaSpire Blast in my home, so we're going to talk today about some of the functionality that you can get through the Wisper Home app. So when you open the Wisper Home app, the first thing you're going to see is this kind of main dashboard. You can add a picture. That's me and my boy. We were out in the redwoods, so nice little picture of me and my son there. The first thing that you're going to see up at the top is all of the devices that are connected within the home. So in this case, I have 16 devices. You also see the last time a speed test was run. So I have a cable provider, so I have very fast download speed, not quite so fast upload speed. But you can see the last time that the speed test was run directly through the app. We can talk about that as well in just a moment of how to actually run a speed test directly through the app. The other thing you see is the types of devices that are connected within my home. So I've got a couple of phones for myself and my wife. I've got, a computer. I've got a bunch of those Amazon devices, as I was talking about previously, a bunch of those Wi-Fi IoT devices. The Blast systems themselves will do a pretty good job of fingerprinting, or I shouldn't say that. They'll do an excellent job of fingerprinting those devices for you as you're connecting them within the home. But if you do want to change those for any reason, you can always click in and actually change those. So I've got, Gabe's iPhone and my wife's iPhone. If I wanted to recategorize that as something else, if for some reason maybe, it didn't categorize it correctly, or if I, wanted to, it was a Wi-Fi IoT device, but I really wanted to call it a camera or something like that, I could go in and always adjust that. You can also adjust the names of the devices in here as well. So if I wanted to call this just, Gabe's phone or what have you, I could go on and just make that change directly through here. That's going to be really helpful when you are setting up some of the parental control stuff that we'll touch on a little bit today. It's going to be really helpful to have those names in there so you can easily identify, what those specific devices are, within your home. Any questions on any of that, guys?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Now, this is an app. Obviously, it's on your phone. You can do all this remote. You can find all this information. You can control this remotely. You don't have to be at your home for this to work, correct?
That's correct. And, so if, you needed to turn off the internet maybe for your kids or something like that remotely, you could certainly do that. But yeah, there's a lot of, whether you're connected to the GigaSpire or not, you do have that flexibility to make these changes. And like, if I did want to disconnect the internet for any of these specific devices that are listed here, I could just slide this toggle and that would actually disconnect that specific device from the internet. So maybe the kids on the Xbox or PlayStation a little bit more than you'd like, you can always slide that off and just disconnect those specific devices from the internet.
Right, disconnect the device. Kid comes to you, says the internet's not working, then you say, go take out the trash, and the internet will start working again, correct?
Exactly, yeah, it's a miracle how quickly they'll get on that and get those chores done.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
About that feature, and their eyes light up like, no way. Yeah.
I was on the phone with a colleague the other day, and we were talking about some of the parental control stuff, which maybe this is a nice opportunity to lean into that. And her son was listening into the conversation and went, "Mom, we don't have that, do we? I really don't want." We got very concerned that mom was going to start disconnecting the Xbox from the internet. So maybe not a kid's best friend, but probably a parent's best friend here for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So should we talk a little bit about the parental controls? Actually, that's probably a nice segue.
Yes, I think so. Seems to be a huge point. It doesn't matter about it, anything else. When I mentioned it to the parents, I mean, it's amazing. Their eyes, like I mentioned. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such a critical set of features within the app. And, with kids potentially learning remotely and things like that now, being able to create some screen time restrictions for your kids, I think becomes even more important. My son is 5 and he's doing virtual kindergarten this year, which seems insane, but this is the world we're living in. And, I didn't realize how much, frankly, time he was going to be spending on a screen. And so being able to create those restrictions outside of his school time, I think has become even more critical for parents. So when you go into let me just go back here. If we click on that top left-hand corner, that little hamburger menu, right up here in the top left corner, you'll see something called Parental Controls. Now, there are a couple of different versions of parental controls. Now, with the Wisper Care Plan, you guys get the enhanced parental controls, and I think we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on that on a future one of these. But let's just talk a little bit about how to set up a profile and how to connect devices to that profile. So first thing you want to do is you want to just go up in the top right-hand corner. You can click that plus, and then you can create a profile. So I could create whatever profile name I wanted here, connect those devices to it, and then that becomes a profile that you see here. You can see I've got some that are created already. My son, or my wife, my son, a couple of different ones for me as well. I've got one for my regular devices as well as for my work devices. One of the really nice features from the parental controls specifically is if you want to just pause the internet, you can pause the internet directly just by clicking on that pause button, right? So if you want to disconnect, all of your child's devices from the internet, like, hey, it's dinner time and you want them to actually have a conversation with you instead of staring at their screens the entire time, you can just disconnect all of those devices directly, from the app.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I was just going to jump in real quick. Anybody watching live, anybody watching in the future at any time, please ask questions if you have any. You can ask them in the chat. We'll get back to you either right away while this is going on or in the future too. And I also like to add, just going through these parental controls, I can't help but think back when I was a kid, how much of a challenge and how different it is these days. With maybe a child's access to the world through this phone. So this is extremely important, and I'm glad you're going over this because I know a lot of people out there will have questions about it and how it works. So really appreciate you going through this with a comb today. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much functionality in here. And again, it's a scary world, right? To be growing up in, this world of the internet, the kids, the smartphone generation who've grown up in a world where they don't remember the world before an iPhone. And, I'm a little bit older. I remember a world before that iPhone existed, but, with technology just being so pervasive in our kids' lives, I think it's really important to be able to create those boundaries for our children. So if I were to click on my son's device as an example, so I've got, just one device associated with his profile. He's got his Chromebook that he has set up for school. One of my favorite features here is this time limits feature. And we could quickly just basically set up a time limit so that a bedtime routine, I think, is a really good example for this. So every day at 9 p.m., if I want all of my child's devices to be disconnected from the internet, all of those could just get disconnected, and I've scheduled that out. And then 7 a.m., they can all get magically reconnected to the internet. So all of those devices that are associated with this profile will get disconnected. You can even potentially set multiple time limits for the same day. So going back to that Xbox or PlayStation example that we were talking about, with kids learning remotely, if you wanted to lock down the Xbox or PlayStation during school hours, so I use my air quotes there, where between the hours of 8 and 4, you don't want the Xbox or PlayStation to even have the ability to be connected to the internet, you could set up a profile for that specific gaming device and disconnect it, during school hours and on school days. So I think that's a really interesting way that people can use this to help kind of control screen time and control the limits for their, what they think is most appropriate for their kids.
Yeah, I agree. And, my expectation just before we started, 15 or so minutes ago of what this app was, I was just barely scratching the surface on the potential of and that's just parental controls. I'm sure there's a ton of other things that you can do with this thing. So yeah, I'm definitely all in, and yeah, I'm all in, and I appreciate the screen sharing and all that, because this is golden. So yeah, what's next? Are you still going with parental controls, or
let's jump out of parental controls and maybe talk about a couple of the other features, because I know we're going to drill down on parental controls a little bit more in the future. So let's one other nice feature that I think exists here is this guest network setup. So one of the things that becomes problematic is you don't necessarily want to share your actual Wi-Fi SSID and password with people who are coming over to your house. Maybe it's the babysitter or the dog sitter or the house sitter. Well, you can quickly set up a guest network just by clicking on that little plus button, put a name, give it an SSID. You can set this up either as an endless network, or you can time bound it and date bound it specifically. So the house sitter example, they're coming over for the weekend, and you want to just provide them access to the internet, but not necessarily provide them access to everything. The other cool thing about this is when you're done setting it up, you can actually just text this directly to the people who would be coming over, and then they'll have all of that information when they show up. So really good way to share, your access to the internet with people without actually having to give them your Wi-Fi SSID and password.
That's cool already.
Yeah, no, that's good, because so you have all these routers that I've worked with in the past over years and years and years. You got your, Linksys, Netgears, whatever you want to say, TP-Link, and they all come with this automatic guest network that nobody ever knows what to do with ever. It's just there. You get there, I'm like, hey, I'm going to shut that off, because it's just something that you don't need bogging down whatever it is. So that is extremely useful.
Yeah. And there's so many applications I can see with that as well, even for businesses. And
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my customers, I mean, they don't want to share all their bandwidth, all out there to everybody. So it's kind of nice to segregate some of your network a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because even the parental controls, for some of the content blocking and things like that, and we can talk about that again in the future, but that's actually something that I can see being really beneficial for a coffee house or a restaurant that has open Wi-Fi. Being able to block that for those, small business customers, I think would be really helpful as well. But the guest network's another great example for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and I see it on the list right there, but tell us a little bit about ProtectIQ.
Yeah, perfect. I definitely wanted to hit on that one as well. So ProtectIQ is something that I think is, I describe this as kind of like eating your vegetables. It's good for you. It may not necessarily be the most exciting thing in the whole world, but it is something that's really beneficial. And the ProtectIQ solution actually provides that umbrella of protection for all of the devices that are connected within the home. So when you click on ProtectIQ, you can see basically the amount of traffic that's been scanned in my network. So overall today, I've had 3.2 million packets scanned within the ProtectIQ solution. Over the past 30 days, I've had 1 virus detected. I've had 3 intrusions and 2 web threats that have been detected as well. So the ProtectIQ solution is just constantly running in the background for all of those devices that are connected within our home to the wireless access point. And, again, this is those smart home devices. A lot of times they have really poor security. There's hard-coded passwords. They end up becoming the avenue for hackers, frankly, to get into our homes. And having this solution just run across all of the devices within your home is, just a fantastic benefit that comes with the Wisper Care plan.
And this is stopping it at the router before it even gets to your device. And that's
that's correct.
I mean, that's the best kind of protection you'd ever want before it even touches any device you're using.
The other thing I would definitely recommend, just as kind of a best practice for your customers, is going into security settings and turning on these IPS settings as well. I realize the names here are a little bit archaic, but this intrusion prevention system settings is really what you want to focus on. And this is another layer of protection. So, for example, if you have a Ring doorbell and somebody's trying to get that video and send it to a different location than where it was being sent before, these intrusion prevention system settings will actually prevent those things from happening as well. So definitely recommend going in there and turning on those additional settings for that added layer of protection for all of those devices.
That's pretty cool. I mean, so much about this whole router is just really exciting. As more and more we keep diving into it. So is there anything else that you can really think of that some of our customers need to know?
I think the only other thing I wanted to hit on was the bandwidth test. So if we click on the bandwidth test, you do have the ability to actually run a speed test directly from the app. And I think the big difference to understand here is, you could download a speed test app and run it from your phone, but that's an actual speed test to the phone. This is a speed test to the actual system that's sitting in your home, that wireless access point. So you can just click on begin bandwidth test and it will run. And that way you can get that really good understanding of what speed is actually going to the GigaSpire Blast system that's sitting in your home. Just take a moment to run. And then once it's done, then when we go back to our main dashboard, we would see that speed test persist up there. And we'd also see it once it's complete, come up here into the notification section also. I just wanted to call that out as well.
Right. No, the speed test to the router is important because if you're doing it from a phone, or a lot of people do it from an Xbox or a PlayStation or whatever it is, there could be a lot of false positives. So
yeah,
it just
absolutely
eliminates that extra step, goes right to the router, and that'll give you one of the most purest speed tests that you can find. So yeah, that's pretty awesome too.
There we go. And there's my notification that pops up that tells me my speed test is done, and I got 556 meg down and 17 meg up.
He's cruising.
Yeah.
At least downstream. I'd prefer some more upstream, but
yeah,
I don't have a fiber provider in my area. So
yes. So, and one thing too, as far as a question I get a lot is different devices. Is there a way to monitor if one device is using more bandwidth than the other? For an example, an update on your laptop or an update on your phone, and you don't even know they're going off half the time. Is there a way to determine which device is using all the bandwidth?
Yeah, you can certainly pop up here into the device list and see some of that usage as well, around what's actually been, the usage for specific devices. You can see that here, popping through with the download and upload usage there. The other usage piece that I think is really cool is you can actually see the aggregate usage for all of the devices connected to a parental control profile if we bounce back to there. So if, for example, I wanted to go to all of my work devices and look at my usage, I can see here that my usage is pretty boring on my work apps, but you see that it's, mostly Microsoft Office applications. If I go to the week, you're going to see different things. So some LinkedIn, some Pandora, a lot of Zoom calls, as you would imagine, Salesforce, those sorts of things. So you can actually see the usage here as well, not only for, situations like you were talking about, Aaron, but also just at an aggregate level of, what applications your kids are using, or in this case, my boring work stuff.
Very good. And then are you able to determine how much of your bandwidth might go to different devices then is maybe a step further?
So sorry, actually, kind of tune the bandwidth that would go to...
that Xbox can have 10 meg, that my PlayStation can have, 100, whatever, right?
Yeah, that's actually a future enhancement that we're looking at, Jesse. And I think it's something we call kind of quality of experience, right? Or QoS. And we do see that as a big benefit, right? Like I think my own home is probably a good example for this. I work remotely, my son's learning remotely. Well, it's more important for me to have bandwidth associated with my work laptop for a situation like this, right? Obviously, I don't want my internet cutting out. So if there's parents, who are working from home, they want to have that dedicated internet, or dedicated broadband specifically for their work devices, and maybe they don't care that the Xbox is working so well during the day for their kids, or things like that. That's a future enhancement that we're looking at to be able to steer bandwidth more appropriately to a specific device.
No, good. Yeah, good to know that that's in the works and possibly coming in here in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have a 500 meg download, then maybe not that important. But if you have 10, 15 to 20, then maybe some allocation would be.
And the upload is really where I notice problems, right? Like, that's even at 17 meg, when I'm on video conference calls, my son's on calls as well. It's that tends to be where the problems occur for, video conferencing and things like that.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a higher demand there for sure.
Oh, no question.
More questions being asked just with all the video conferencing that everybody
well, and the Ring doorbell is a good, another good example. That's constantly pushing data, video data back up to the cloud, right? So those, as we install more of those devices inside or maybe on the outside of our homes, all of those things are pushing data back up to the cloud, and that puts more strain on that upstream pipe as well.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. We might have a question. What are some devices that people forget to use bandwidth in the background? Oh, that some people might forget that uses in the background. So we might get a phone call from a customer like, "Hey, my internet's not working." We'll go in there and be like, "Wow, you're maxing out." So something is there, and they're like, "No, no one's using it." What are some devices that people forget that could be chewing up their bandwidth in the background? And that's what this app could help you figure out if it's a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this thing that I'm holding in my hand is probably the worst offender there, right? Is, if you're running regular cloud backups, if you're taking, as soon as you plug your phone in, it's going to try and back up your data to the cloud, right? And we're seeing that more and more happen where people go to plug their phone in, and as soon as that happens, then it starts to automatically try and push data back up to, the iCloud or whatever, right, as an example. That is just an absolute bandwidth suck and can create massive problems for people. You'll be sitting on the couch watching a movie, and all of a sudden your pixels, everything starts pixeling, or you get the dreaded ring of death, right? Buffering of death. And, it's because of those specific situations where all of a sudden a bunch of stuff's trying to get backed up to the cloud because you plugged your phone in. So those are very common situations that can occur for sure.
Yeah, being on the phones for a long time, one of the big ones I've noticed are these Xboxes and PlayStations, because they don't get shut off all the way. They get
another one, yeah.
Rest mode, and then they can download updates in the background, and these files are huge, and they could last a really long time. So that's another.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse. You're so right about that. I mean, the Xbox and PlayStation, when Call of Duty gets a new map or something like that, right? And it's just this massive file that gets downloaded, or when a new game comes out and people are trying to all download that at the same time, that can cause problems as well. So yeah, those are great ones for sure.
Yeah, back in the day, you'd throw a disc in and it's done. And now there are no discs, and these things the game is never done. It is always being updated, which is really cool, but it could cause some bandwidth issues.
Well, back in my day, you'd have to blow out the little Nintendo cartridge, to try and get that thing going. That was my game.
Episode on back in my day playing games.
Oh, we could.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah. You would have a lot more say than me, Jesse, though. Just saying.
I agree. So very good. Well, I tell you what, especially since we're going to have you again, and we're probably dive deep into this a little bit further. We'll go ahead and start wrapping this up.
We do have one more question real quick, Jesse.
Oh, yeah, go for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So what are some devices that people forget that can get viruses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think going back to that smart home conversation, right? And it's not even so much the viruses, it's really the intrusions and the web threats that can happen on those systems specifically. And, realistically, most people don't care whether it's an intrusion or a web threat or a virus. It's like somebody's trying to get in and do something malicious in my home, right? One of my coworkers actually had a situation where somebody tried to hack her Nest thermostat, and she got an alert from ProtectIQ that popped up, and it said, "Hey, somebody's trying to get connected through your Nest thermostat." And she's like, "Well, what are they going to do? Turn the air conditioning on? I don't care." But it's not so much. Yeah, it's not so much what they're trying to do with that device specifically. It's the highway into all of the other devices that are connected within your home. And, I think of Nest as very good quality from a security perspective, right? It's owned by a big company. Google owns that, right? Like they're doing a good job from a security perspective, and even that potentially can become a concern. So I think those are really where the biggest threats lie in our homes right now, is all of those smart home devices that we love and create convenience in our lives, but unfortunately create ways for people to get into our home networks as well.
Yep, that's a good one.
No, very nice. Gabe, this was great, and we look forward to having you again for the next one.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah, just because you're extremely informational, and this app is it's huge. This is a big rollout that we're doing, and you know it very well. So we're excited to have you again. Is there any? Do you have any social media you want to plug for yourself? Anywhere people can find you, or do you do anything like that?
I'm not a huge social media guy actually, but you can hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to, if you have any questions or, whatever. Yeah, I'm, certainly happy to answer questions for people. And I'm really excited to continue to do these for you guys in the future and, talk to folks a little bit more about some of the content filters and whatnot in the enhanced parental controls, because I see that as a huge value add that you're delivering as well through the Wisper Care Plan. I think there's a lot there that we can talk about.
Oh yeah, we're really excited. This is an awesome change for us, and I see so many great things coming out of this. So yes, exactly. So
all right, well, let's go ahead and we'll wrap it up. I don't see any other questions. We look forward to having Gabe in the future. If anybody does have any questions just for Gabe, you can put a note or link in the forum here, and we'll reach out to him. But for myself, Aaron, Gabe, thank you everybody who watched. Thank you, Christina, who pushes all the buttons behind the scenes and gets this set up for us. We will talk to you guys very soon next time. Thank you very much.
All right. See you guys later.